Well, good morning. It is February 28th, the last day of February 2011, and the first day of a brand new chapter on Take 5. Today we're in Matthew chapter 8, and we just came down from the mountain. The Sermon on the Mount, the greatest sermon ever preached. So how are you going to follow up a great sermon? How about a little miracle? And that's what we're going to see here. We're going to start seeing a series of healings and miracles. And this one's particularly fascinating, so let's get right to it. Matthew chapter 8, verse 1. When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, I will. Be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, See that you say nothing to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a proof to them. We see leprosy dealt with quite often here in the Gospels. Jesus dealt with lepers a lot. And the thing about leprosy, you can go back and read about it in the Old Testament. It was a very serious skin disease, and for homework you can do some research on it. But I mean, this is more than some sores or dandruff or psoriasis. This was very serious. Apparently, with leprosy, the nerve endings on the different appendages, your fingers, your toes, your nose, things like that, you would have no feeling in them. So you would try to get feeling in them and scratching yourself and rubbing and things like that, and eventually you'd wear them off, or you couldn't feel pain, and that would cause problems too. So it was a very serious disease, and people that had leprosy looked terrible. They were very ugly, and they were not allowed to be part of the community. They had to be kept outside, and whenever someone would approach them, they would have to say, unclean, unclean, unclean. So it was a terrible thing to be a leper. It's sort of, those of you who are old enough to remember when AIDS first came out, I guess 20 years ago or something like that, 25, 30 years ago, the way people responded to those who had AIDS. We now know a lot more about it. We know it's not contagious unless it's, well, we don't want to go into that. But nevertheless, the same kind of thing. People that had AIDS were treated this way fairly similarly. They weren't really accepted in the community. So this guy, he's been suffering from this for a long time. So he asked Jesus to make him clean, and Jesus says, "Absolutely, I'm willing to do it." And he cleanses him. But something interesting, though, Jesus says, "Don't go tell anybody." Now, there could be several reasons for that. Maybe Jesus wasn't ready for the big crowds yet, although they're going to start coming pretty soon, and they did come to hear him preach at the Sermon on the Mount. Perhaps he didn't want any personal glory. But he tells him to go to the priest and offer the appropriate sacrifice. And it's interesting, you can do some homework on this. You go to Leviticus 14, I believe it is, somewhere around there. You're going to see the appropriate sacrifice to be offered when you're cleansed of leprosy is 2 birds. And what would happen, they would slaughter one bird, and they would drip his blood into a little pool of water, and then the other bird, the live bird, they would dip into that bloody water, and they would set that bird free. So they killed one and set the other one free. And isn't that what happened on the cross? Jesus died, shed his blood for us, and then when we're washed in that blood, we can be set free. So this is what he told the guy he just cleansed of the physical disease of leprosy to go do, so he could be ceremonially clean in the community. And then, of course, 3 years later, Jesus would physically die so he could be spiritually clean. We all can if we accept it. I just think that's fascinating, that whole concept there. So anyway, I hope you got something out of that. I certainly did. Enjoyed reading that today. Come back tomorrow. We'll look at somebody who had incredible, amazing faith on tomorrow's edition of Take 5.